So I think AI will be doing the heavy lifting.
Welcome to a brand new episode of the M&A Mastermind podcast, where we dive deep into the latest trends and strategies to take your firm to the next level.
We have a very special guest joining the M&A Mastermind podcast today. He comes from a background in investment banking and private equity. He left the finance industry to search for more of a work-life balance. He has since rejoined the financial world and works more than ever before. He has broken the same ankle 5 times, apparently. That sounds painful. He does not eat sweets, and he is the co-founder of Grasp AI. Please welcome my guest today, Johan Cederqvist. Johan, how you doing?
Thanks, Nick. It's great to be here.
Awesome. Great to have you. I appreciate you taking the time to join us. Really want to dive into Grasp AI, the company that you help co-found, but also just talk generally about AI and finance and what that means for all of us. I know that's a big topic that we're all, hearing about and wondering about. So hopefully you can kind of give us a little bit of insight into what that looks like and, what we can expect. So kind of start the conversation. Just tell our listeners a little bit about your background.
Sure. So I have my background in finance, been a few stints in, as you mentioned there, investment banking and private equity. Also spent a bunch of years at McKinsey, actually together with one of my co-founders, Richard. And it was really there that we, got the idea for Grasp. We came there, we noticed that, a really large part of the work that we did was super manual, super repetitive work. We were really surprised by that. You can charge hundreds of thousands of dollars per week for a top tier consulting team. And the vast majority of the work is done by junior analysts that just came out of college. And they basically do manual and repetitive work. So, we wanted to automate that away. Our third co-founder basically showed us how we can do that. And that was the start of the company, 2020. So almost 5 years ago now.
2020, Grasp AI is the name of the company.
This episode of the M&A Mastermind podcast is brought to you by Cornerstone International Alliance, a global partnership of M&A firms focused on the lower middle market. With CAA, you get access to collaboration, expertise, a global presence, and much more, all to help take your firm to the next level. Interested in becoming a member? Visit cornerstoneia.com/new member.
So obviously you kind of hit on it. That manual labor that takes a lot of time, but what other problems does your platform solve for investment bankers, M&A advisors?
Yeah, sure. So when we started the company, our plan was really to automate the entire end-to-end workflow for investment bankers, private equities, and consultancies. Now, that's a pretty ambitious task. Of course, you can't do everything all at once, so you need to start somewhere. So our wedge into this problem was really helping our users find and understand companies. That's really what we do. So think about investment bankers that are our customers today. They use us to map competitive landscapes, to create M&A target lists, to create strategic and financial buyer lists, and of course taking those long lists down to prioritized short lists. That's very important, and then analyzing those remaining companies that you see in those lists. And basically, tying back a bit to a real world example here. Let's say that you have a buy side mandate where you're looking for HVAC companies in Northern Europe. They should be distributors and they should carry inverter products and be focused on the industrial segment. Now, doing that with traditional methods, trying to use industry codes or searching around in registered trade descriptions or Googling around for those types of companies, it's way too detailed. You can't do that. So what you need to do is basically to analyze the publicly available information about these companies, not just the reported data that you get from local registries. So what we've been doing here at Grasp is basically, vacuuming basically the entire web for valuable information about private companies. Think about, the hundreds of millions of company websites that exist out there, all of their LinkedIn pages, the news articles, the press releases where you can actually understand, have they recently acquired a new major customer? Were they recently involved in M&A, or has there been a recent ownership change, for example? All of that information is out there on the web, publicly available. But if you look at, the incumbent players in this space, like the PitchBooks and the Cap IQs of the world, they're fantastic at, using all of the reported information that you can find in the local registries. But really, that valuable publicly available information that you don't get through the local registries, that's what we've been vacuuming and basically building like a huge database that we then, of course, have applied our own AI models to, so that we can really understand that information. So I think the delta or the difference here, like versus the incumbent players, that will really make sense of this previously like untapped data source. I think that's like a very important point to make here. You need the better data and you need the models to make sense of that data. And at the end of the day, like what that results in for our customers is that they get, more exhaustive, more precise company lists so that they can find, that hidden gem M&A target, that, an unexpected or unlikely strategic buyer that actually have acquired in that space before, that otherwise would have been overlooked. And by finding those, they can then place a bid on the company that you have your sell side managed for, drive up the price, and therefore also of course like drive up the fee of the investment bank. So at the end of the day, we try to automate a really large part of the finance workflow, but the wedge into this has really been creating this the best company lists in the world, basically.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. That is a great ambition, and I know you guys are working hard at that. So you guys are based in Sweden, correct?
That's right.
You mentioned kind of who the clientele is: your investment bankers, your private equity firms, your consultants, your M&A advisors. Where do most of your clients come from currently?
We have about 50% of our clients from Europe, all over Europe, about a third from North America, so the US and Canada. And then the remaining 15% or what have you is from rest of the world. In Africa, South America, Australia, parts of Asia. The good thing about not being reliant upon, the local registry data, which we of course have as well, is that, as long as the company has a website, we can find it and we can actually understand what they do. So also, of course, like if they have LinkedIn pages or there are news articles or press releases about the companies, like as long as there is a digital footprint of that company, we can basically find it and we can help you understand it. And that means that our market is completely global. We can find customers all over the world. But I would say the vast majority in terms of segments are investment banks, the vast majority. But then we also do have some private equity clients, also some management consultancies and some corporates as well, but mainly investment banks in North America and Europe.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. Yeah, that's one thing I've been impressed with for you guys is your coverage of the European market and companies and things like that. And I know that's what led us to kind of get introduced and look at options for our group, Cornerstone International Alliance, and our European members, and so that's how we got connected. And so you mentioned, like I said, if it's got a digital footprint around the world, it's, you have access to it. You're gonna find it, right? You said the registries. So the registries, you're like I said, that's where their strength in Europe comes. It probably sets you guys apart a little bit if I'm correct in saying that. But what does your coverage look like as far as those go in North America and other parts of the world?
Yeah, that's actually a pretty good question because we do have coverage of what's been reported to, the SEC in the US, Companies House in the UK, and most of the European countries, for example. But if you're looking at, private companies, which many, at least like mid-market investment banks are interested in the vast majority of the countries in the world, there is very little reported data about the private companies. Sweden, where I'm from, is one of the few exceptions where, all the private companies need to report their entire P&L, their balance sheet, their cash flow statement, their entire ownership tree. Like it's pretty uncommon. In the vast majority of countries around the world, there is no reported data on private companies. And that means that if you're purely reliant upon, reported data, then you have no information at all when it comes to private companies in the US, for example. So and I think that actually explains why we have had really good traction in, for example, the US and Canada. We haven't even made like a serious sales push into those countries. The client has basically come to us. And the reason is that, the traditional databases, they have so little information about these private companies. But now going back to the examples that I mentioned earlier, let's say that you have that buy-side mandate. Well, as long as, if you are looking for this sort of M&A targets in the HVAC space, if you're analyzing a company website, let's say you're going through every single company website of a private company, like every single private company in the US, you're analyzing their landing page, their About Us page, you're going to the products or services page, you look at all the sub pages, read the text, and you look at all the images. If you do that, then you would actually understand, is this an HVAC company or isn't it? Is it actually a distributor, or is it a manufacturer or service provider or whatever? Are they actually targeting the residential or commercial or industrial segment? Do they carry inverter products? Like, you can actually find all of this information if you go deep enough on the company websites. And then again, we can still, look at, for example, the press releases about the company or the news articles of the company, where we can find that, okay, so the owner here, we can see that is actually, 70 years old. This is probably a company that is going to be, shifting generations pretty soon. And therefore, he's probably likely to sell the business. So we can then find companies that very much match the scope of what you're looking for. And we can highlight that it's a generational shifting company. And I mean, doing that with publicly available information is fantastic. It would never be able to be done if you only relied upon, the information from the SEC, for example. So I think that's, that whole thing about, not very much information being reported about private companies in many countries around the world has actually been a major growth driver for our business.
Yeah, and that information you're talking about is very difficult to come by. I think we can all attest to that. And so anyway, we can get some of that inside, information that is not necessarily made public, I think is
exactly
usually beneficial.
One comment on that is that, I mean, you can, as an analyst, of course, like, you could access that information, like company by company, but you would never be able to go through, the millions of privately owned companies in the US. So I think really the upside of using an AI here is not that it's necessarily smarter than a human being. It's just that it can process like so much more information than what a human can. So it can go through all of these millions of company websites and therefore highlight the relevant players. So it's really just about, the processing power of being able to do this at, 1,000 times the scale of that of a, regular human analyst.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Yeah. It's hopefully buying us some time, essentially.
For sure.
And so, how is, kind of diving into just AI in general, and, I want to, I will say, just seeing your platform and your AI component is great. And it's definitely a big component of your platform. But generally speaking, how is AI affecting the financial industry, specifically investment banking and mergers and acquisitions?
Yeah. I think it's going to affect it a lot, really a lot. I think it's going to be in the same, magnitude as, personal computers were in the 70s and 80s, that the internet was in the 90s. So I think it's going to be a profound impact. And I think it's going to be, I mean, if you think about like, how do investment bankers actually work? The way that they work is very similar to how they worked 5, 10, 15, perhaps even 20 years ago. Not much has changed. But the underlying like technology and what you can do, that has changed profoundly. So that the way that you will work going forward will change significantly. I think that's almost a certainty. When it comes to how it will change, I think about it in two ways. The first part is really just automating like manual tasks. Basically, creating a long list from scratch, for example, going through thousands of company websites, doing tedious alignment of boxes in PowerPoint, like those sort of things, just creating like a company one-pager for 15 potential M&A targets, all those sort of things I think will be automated away. So juniors can spend their time on, more high value adding work. So the automation part of it, I think is definitely true. And I think that will actually shift the organizational structures of investment banks. Today, they're very bottom heavy with lots of junior resources and quite few seniors. I actually think that's going to swap around so that you will have relatively more senior people, because what they do in terms of their hard-earned skills from 30 years in the industry, the experience that they carry, when it comes to the relationships that they have. That's not easy to automate away. That's just going to be more and more valuable. But when it comes to the junior resources, at least parts of what they do will most likely be automated away. So the organizational, pyramids, I think, Perhaps they're not going to be completely turned upside down, but I think that there will be relatively more seniors compared to the juniors than before due to the automation. But then I think the second point I think is even more important, because that's not just like automating stuff, but it's really about enhancing the quality of the work that is being done. If you just think about it, like going back to what we were saying before about analyzing lots of companies for a buy-side mandate, for example, finding potential M&A targets. Let's go back to that. If you just compare like how many potentially relevant companies that an AI can go through compared to what can, a bunch of analysts or associates go through. Like the regular methods that at least I used to find M&A targets was, I went into a bunch of databases, searched in with keywords. I used to pull out lots of industry codes. Then I was Googling around. I was talking to experts and to the internal partners or managing directors. And then I basically put in a lot of time to go through like company after company after company. And all in all, perhaps we went through, a few hundred, perhaps even a few thousand companies. But now, if you would compare that to an AI that is analyzing, hundreds of millions of companies to find that single companies that is the perfect fit, like the hidden gem M&A target out there. I mean, just compare like the quality of that, proposed M&A target compared to if you would have had, only humans doing this work and they only see a small fraction of all of the companies that are out there. Same thing goes for finding potential buyers for a sell-side mandate, or actually whatever analysis that you would like to do. As long as the AI can handle a lot more information than a human can and be at least equally smart in how it draws its conclusions, then I think you can certainly be quite certain that it will do a way better job when it comes to delivering high quality results. So I think that parts of this, the implications of AI will be related to automating away stuff, but I think an even more important piece of it will be basically enhancing the work that previously had been suboptimally done due to humans being imperfect, so to speak.
Yeah. It kind of goes to the fact that just because that's the way we've always done it doesn't mean it's the best way to do it. And I think that's really what AI is doing, is helping us become more efficient and hopefully saving us some time, like I mentioned before. But that also poses another question, one that comes up a lot, whether it's serious or kind of, as a joke, but will AI cause people to lose jobs? Will they replace humans? What is your take on that?
Yeah, I think most people have like a binary answer to that. They say either no, or they say definitely yes. I think the truth is probably somewhere in between. First of all, as I mentioned, I think the parts of the market that will be affected will be the junior people. I think that's for sure. But I actually think that it will not be a bloodshed. I don't think that the vast majority of them will lose their jobs. Rather, I think that they will be significantly more productive than they are today. They will be able to spend their time on stuff that actually matters, like real analysis, and not do, this buyer lists from scratch, or, creating 15 one-pagers in PowerPoint and aligning the boxes. So I think that they will be able to make the firms a lot more efficient, basically being able to, work on way more, pitch materials, work on way more live mandates, basically increasing the overall productivity of the firms. So I think that's going to be a major driver. But then, of course, some jobs might very well be automated away, especially like in the regular like research part of things. But all in all, I think it's not going to be that, all the junior people are being lost, because what's really important here, if you go back to like the actual clients of, no matter if it's investment banks or for management consultancies, like they buy the services because they need to trust the results. I mean, they can reach some sort of conclusion themselves, but they need to trust the solution. And therefore, I mean, they would never just outsource that to an AI themselves. They are hiring an investment bank or hiring a management consultancy to make sure that they get the best possible answer. And it's double checked and triple checked. So I think that you will always need humans in the loop that monitor the AI, make sure that it's making the correct assumptions, make sure that it's using the correct data sources, all that sort of stuff. So I think AI will be doing the heavy lifting, but the junior analysts will still need to be like co-pilots to the AI, making sure that it's directed in the right direction and also sanity check the results, if that makes sense.
Absolutely. Yeah, I do think you're spot on that, and if you're taking AI, at face value, then you're probably, not doing it your job in your role. It's just there. So I think it can get you, like 80-90% of the way, but there's still some you want to fine tune, you want to make sure it's right and all that sort of stuff. So I definitely think that's
Absolutely.
spot on. Now you have one thing that you can look at Grasp AI compared to other AI platforms out there is you got your generic AI solutions, your ChatGPT and those others. So what is your take on that compared to what you would call Grasp as a use case specific solution?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I think that there is space and there is a need for both generic and use case specific solutions. Obviously, ChatGPT is a fantastic consumer product. I also think it's a good general business product that can be used across most organizations. But if you're thinking about a particular customer group, let's take investment banks as an example, or you could also take lawyers or accountants or what have you. They have very specific jobs that they need to get done. Those jobs look very different depending on if you are an investment banker or if you are a lawyer. You look at very different data points. You look at very different output formats of what you're trying to do or trying to create. So I think if you're using a generic solution like ChatGPT, you can do a little bit of the work that you're trying to get done. I think, for example, if you're looking for, let's go back to the buy side M&A example. You're looking for M&A targets within, the HVAC space. They should be distributors. They should carry inverter products. They should target the residential segment. I think asking that to ChatGPT, you can get probably a few HVAC companies out of there that probably could be, roughly irrelevant. But if you wanted to get every single company that's relevant in there and you want to include their financials, which you, by the way, can't get without, actually purchasing that data, and you want to know their M&A history, if they're likely to be, a generational shift in company or what have you, there is so many data points there that if you just have a generic solution that is just predicting the next word, it's not going to give you an optimal result. But if you have trained, AI models that are particularly good at understanding, for example, what does a company do based on how they describe themselves on their website? For example, we have models that are particularly good at understanding where is the company in the value chain. Are they a distributor? Are they a manufacturer? Are they a contract manufacturer? What customer segment are they targeting? What particular products or services do they offer? We have models that are particularly trained at that. And that means that they outperform the generic models significantly when it comes to how precise they are. And also, I think another point is related to cost efficiency. Now, if you're using, an off-the-shelf GPT-4 model as an example to analyze millions of company websites, that will very quickly be extremely costly, completely cost prohibitive. So what you need to do is that you need to train your own models, both to increase the quality of the output, but also to make it feasible to run these models on huge amounts of data. So we're talking, orders of magnitude smaller models that we can train, because they only need to be good at one thing and one thing only. So therefore they can be much, much smaller while being much, much better at their work. And then also, of course, the entire system is then, optimized for one particular type of user. In this case, an investment banker, for example. So I would definitely not say that generic solutions like ChatGPT will, kill every software company that's out there, but rather I think that they will be, the providers of the underlying models that these use case specific solutions use to then fine tune and then create this, very niche solutions for certain types of customers. So I think both of them certainly have a reason to exist.
Right. Absolutely. So you kind of, we can highlight, kind of the use cases you said for your clients. You got, like I said, buyers lists, prospects or, potential clients.
Yeah.
You can do other things. What are the main use cases of Grasp and then, currently?
Yeah. So for the investment banks, which are our main segment, there is really helping them in the buy side mandates, in the sell side mandates, and helping them land new mandates. But it's also very interesting when we're looking at how consultancies, for example, use our tool. And this is something that we've seen happen a lot actually for the investment banks and also private equities as well, is that they use it to understand markets. So for example, again, going back to the HVAC example, if you want to find every single HVAC company in Germany, you can use Grasp to find all of them. And then you can cut the market in any way that you would like. So you can add a data column saying, now I want to know, if they offer this particular product. And that means that you can then filter out all of the companies that offer that product and see, okay, so how many companies is in that segment of the market? How big is that segment of the market? How quickly is that segment growing? How profitable is that segment? And then you can say, okay, actually now I'm interested in the companies offering that product, but only to these sort of customers. Then you add a data column for, do they target industrial customers, for example? And then you filter out the companies with yes in that column. And then you cut the market in that way. So you can basically now, do bottom-up analysis of, any industry that you would like in any way that you would like. As long as it's, we have information from the company websites where we can understand what they do, then we can cut this in any way that you would like. And it's really, back at McKinsey, at least, that was like the holy grail, being able to do, bottom-up market analysis in every project. You always wanted to do it, but you never really could, put the time and effort into it. Now you can do it, within a few seconds. And that's a use case that I think is very, very interesting, and something that, not only consultancies, but also investment banks and private equities is in lots and lots of value in, besides then, of course, creating the buyer target lists and finding potential units.
Mm-hmm. What does the future hold? What are you guys working on? Can you give us a sneak peek as to what might be what the future might hold for Grasp and your clients?
Yeah, a lot is happening. We started the company 5 years ago. We bootstrapped for the first 4 years, and then basically really started scaling the company about a year ago. So 1 year ago, we were just 5 guys sitting in a small office. Then we brought in our seed round, and we've been scaling to 20 plus people now. Soon about to raise our Series A. And product-wise, which I think is most important, we're adding deeper and deeper data to the product. For example, now it's kind of interesting. We've been building this, M&A database of, all of the M&A transactions that are out there on the web. And it's very interesting when we're comparing, our own database to the databases of the leading providers that are out there. We can see that we can actually find so many more transactions that they cannot find, because they have a team of 100, 500, 1,000 analysts going manually through press releases every day. But we can actually scan the entire web and find every single press release related to M&A that basically is available on the web. And as soon as something new is released, it can be entered like this into our database. So we're right now, adding deeper and deeper data to the platform. For example, this M&A database, including transaction values and deal multiples, which many of our customers have been screaming for months. Many other data points are being added as well to the platform. But I think an even bigger shift that's going to happen in I think a couple of months' time is that we're also going towards the direction of using AI agents. I think this is going to be the future for the sort of solutions that Grasp is, but also actually in many other domains too, where you can not just have like a point and click interface where the user guides the AI in every single step, but rather you can give the AI like a broader objective, and the AI can then understand like what tasks do I need to get done in order to reach this objective, and can then efficiently, keep the human in the loop, telling it exactly what it's doing, what assumption it's making, what data sources it's using, and then the human can make sure that the AI is doing the correct things, and then it can take it all the way, like going back to our vision here with the end-to-end, finance workflow that we want to automate. I think really AI agents is going to be, the key to reaching that. So looking into the crystal ball, I think that's for sure where we are heading.
Okay. Awesome. That sounds great. And I really appreciate you taking us, into the world of AI specifically for investment banking and our own purposes, and then really explaining what Grasp AI is all about. So really appreciate you on your time here today, and thank you for joining our show. Where can our listeners find out more about you and your company and your platform? Sure.
Yeah, no, a pleasure to be here, Nick. They can go to grasp-ai.com, and there they can find our contact information, set up a meeting with myself or one of my colleagues, and then we always offer a free trial. We always want to prove to potential customers the value that we create. So just go into grasp-ai.com and let us know, and we'll set up a meeting and share a free trial with you.
Perfect. John, thank you again for joining the M&A Mastermind podcast. That's all we have for today's episode. Do Johan and myself a favor, like, share, comment on this episode, subscribe to our YouTube channel, and check out all of our episodes at cornerstoneia.com, and pass along this discussion to anybody you think might find it valuable and interesting and helpful. That's all we have for today. Until next time, everybody, take care.